bit, and then we'll pick up your phone calls. In Washington State yesterday, pot became legal. And the Center for American Progress's blog, Think Progress, Nicole Flato is writing over there. It's headline, What You Need to Know Before You Buy Weed in Washington State. And it's very interesting. Only 24 places in the state are allowed to sell this stuff. You can buy up to 1 ounce if you live in Washington State. But there's a weirdness to the Washington State laws. You can only smoke pot on property that you own. So if you're renting or if you're in a hotel, you can't legally smoke the pot there. So there are people who are suggesting, and I guarantee there will be a lawsuit to this effect probably in the next few weeks, who are suggesting that this is inherently discriminatory against both poor people and people of color who disproportionately rent rather than buy their homes. So that's, a very interesting piece of this. Over 7,000 businesses applied for 334 slots that the state had authorized to sell. For stores to sell pot, only 24 have been given licenses. So these 24 stores opened day before yesterday, but they only notified everybody in I guess it was early June that pot sales were going to become legal in early July, and therefore the licensed growers have only had a month or so to start growing stuff, and so there's not much of a supply. I mean, Seattle really drove this process. Seattle's a town of, 5-6 million people? They have one pot store there, and it had 2 pounds of inventory. You can buy up to 1 ounce. You have to be 21. But if you take it home and give some to a friend, or even, theoretically you're smoking your stuff and you share it with a friend, that's considered distribution, and that's a crime. That's a felony. So your friend has to go and buy his own pot, and then the two of you can sit and smoke pot together. It's getting a little strange. Okay, now again, these are probably laws that won't be vigorously enforced, but this is how the law has been put together. There's some good stuff coming out of Washington State as well. I mean, just the decriminalization in and of itself is good, particularly for people who are suffering from chronic pain or insomnia or whatever, because in particular, they're requiring that all pot be submitted for lab testing. And it will be there's rigorous labeling requirements. This is really good stuff because there's different ingredients in pot that do different things. There's the THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, which gets you high. There's CBD, which is the cannabinoid that reduces seizures, which is, CNN last night did a special. Sanjay Gupta went to Colorado with his family that was living in New Jersey after Chris Christie refused to expand medical marijuana in New Jersey. Their daughter was suffering from seizures, and this high-level CBD pot extract is the only thing that keeps this little girl, from just constantly having life-threatening seizures. So they moved to Colorado just to be able to get this stuff. So anyway, the pot will be labeled, how much THC, how much CBD, and also how much CBN. Now, CBN promotes sleep. So, and CBD reduces pain. So for somebody who's addicted to or using, let's not even talk about addiction, somebody who is using Vicodin or OxyContin, they would go in and say, I'm in pain. I want to buy a strain of pot that's really high in CBD. And there are numerous studies and tons of anecdotal evidence. But I mean, tens of thousands of studies have been done now around the world on these things that find that in many cases, people react better to the CBD in pot, this cannabinoid, than they do to narcotics. Which explains why Patrick Kennedy and all these anti-pot legalization groups are being offered money by the pharmaceutical companies, literally the pharmaceutical companies that make OxyContin and Vicodin, which is killing thousands of Americans a year and addicting millions of Americans. I think it was 1 in 10 people in Kentucky right now is a regular user of these narcotic pain relievers. Well, if they legalized pot in Kentucky and people could go in and say, I'm in pain, I need high CBD pot, they could stop using this stuff that is killing people and addicting people. Pot is not addictive and it won't kill you. And so now the backlash begins. Last night, Chris Hayes did a rather softball interview with Patrick Kennedy about this and never bothered to confront him with the fact, Kennedy was like, oh, we don't need to add another drug. We've already got enough problems with alcohol and tobacco. Well, yeah, alcohol kills 50,000 Americans a year and probably scrambles the lives of millions. And tobacco kills 500,000 people a year in the United States, far more than even the narcotic opiates. So, maybe we should do something about them. But pot has never killed anybody, and it's not addictive. Yes, it may be habit-forming for some people, and yes, it is psychoactive. And, with any psychoactive drug, there are going to see some people who are like borderline schizophrenic or, have mental illnesses that this will exacerbate. On the other hand, there's probably a lot of people with anxiety disorders that it will help, or insomnia. I think the net of pot is going to be a positive, and that's what they're finding out in Colorado. So this labeling requirement, and in fact, things are going very well in Colorado. Crime rate is down. Huge economic boon. So, it's just a fascinating thing to watch.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And what's particularly fascinating to watch are misinformed or underinformed or uninformed or simply weasels out there saying, oh, no, we've got to keep this stuff illegal.